It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. This is Eric Dudas, and I'm joined, as always, with my partner. He's the mastermind of the FCH database, and a man who can navigate quite well across the Canadian Shield without the aid of GPS. He's Brian Musker. Brian, how are you?
No, I'm doing good, mate. It was really good to have a little break away from all the technology, but I'm really glad to be back again, actually.
Yes, it was a good break, and it's good to be back, and we've got a jam-packed show for everybody. This is episode 8. It will be uploaded to the fullythreaded.com website on July 15th, 2010, and thanks for listening, everybody. In our first segment, we'll be talking with Metric and Multistandard Component Corporation National Sales Manager Rich Cavoto. We'll be covering all things metric with him, and I hope everybody will find that very interesting. In our second feature of the episode, we'll be talking with American Fastener Journal publisher, Mr. Mike McGuire, making his second appearance on the show. And we'll get things kicked off with BB&T Capital Market analyst, Mr. Holden Lewis. He'll be giving us his perspectives on what's happening in industry these days, industrial distribution and supply, that is. So I think you'll find it a great show, and as always, you're invited to send us your feedback. You can always email us at the email address ftr@fullythreaded.com. That's ftr@fullythreaded.com.
Yeah, that's right. And remember, you should also subscribe to the podcast. You can do that by clicking on the link on the right-hand side, top of the Fully Threaded page, and it will lead you through the process of subscription into the Apple iTunes system.
We're the people who bring you fastenersclearinghouse.com, and if you're not familiar with Fasteners Clearinghouse, we invite you to take a look. We're the sourcing network for industrial fasteners, and there are over 500,000 line items in the database from over 250 North American distributors at this point, and it's free to use, free to search and source. Just go to www.fastenersclearinghouse.com. Click on the Search for Fasteners link and you'll see what it is right away. Of course, you're also very much invited to get your own inventory listed up there, and our mission really is to help you sell inventory.
Yes, remember the S, fastenersclearinghouse.com.
Good point. Aside from that, though, we're always in the business of improving the database and making things better for our users. And since the last episode, what do you have to report on that front, Brian? What kind of new things have you been adding?
Well, we've made a couple of little tweaks to the search engine, both in the public and in the members section. And we've been adding some new logic to make the sign-up process a little clearer. It used to come up with some fairly draconian error messages if you made a mistake in your email address. We've simplified that a little bit. And mainly we've been making changes into the members area. I suppose you should let the cat out of the bag relative to the NFDA.
That's right. Last episode, we were kind of teasing the fact that there's something coming out about FCH and NFDA working together, and subsequently we released a press release, a joint press release, that announced the partnership that's going on. So starting very soon, all NFDA members will have access-level membership to fastenersclearinghouse.com. And this is a pretty exciting development, and it brings a couple of key benefits to NFDA members. Namely, they can do a special drill-down search that helps them to kind of keep business in the family, so to speak, within the association. So when they're logged in, they can search the FCH database and locate other NFDA members and hopefully steer some business their way. The other primary benefit is the SourceFinder system, and they'll be receiving SourceFinder inquiries from fellow NFDA members. We're really looking forward to launching this program off. And Brian, I know you've been very busy setting the table for that, so to speak, and kind of getting it ready on the technical front.
it should offer them some really good benefits.
Fully threaded listeners can read up on that subject, and there's a press release on the fastenersclearinghouse.com website on that subject. Just go to fastenersclearinghouse.com, click on the news link, and scroll down a few news items. There's an item from June 15th, and there's a press release there that you can check out. There's a PDF of the release, the formal release that is, and get all the details there.
Yes, so June 15th represents a BF date, before fishing date, and we did implement part of it then. It's not going to be fully implemented probably for another week yet, but we'll welcome comments from our members and look forward to receiving them. We know that the fastener industry is not known for, I guess, lots of commentary, but we always hope to get some.
That's right. And you had to bring fishing into it. And
I know I did. Of course I did. Yes, I know.
We really decompressed while we were away. No internet, no phone service. And it's a little overwhelming, actually, to kind of re-enter the world with all the turmoil and all the information coming at you and everything. And just change your pace from being out there on the lake, isn't it?
Well, usually we can find somewhere on the lake where we can get some cell phone access, and we're not normally completely cut off. But this time, by some set of accidents, we were completely cut off. And there's nothing like being in the middle of a lake with absolutely no access whatsoever, and a potentially major equipment malfunction to make you really realize how much we need to be connected.
Well, I guess that's a great setup for our little mini disaster that we experienced up on the Canadian Shield. We found an undocumented rock in the lake, and we put a little bit of a dent in our lower unit that caused some
consternation,
to say the least. Fortunately, there was a doctor at the camp we were staying at who had a satellite phone. We were able to communicate with the nearest town. That was a little bit of a harrowing voyage, though. Yeah. I still don't understand really how we made it.
Well, actually, it was unusual because there was no damage to our propeller, and it didn't look like there was any damage. It wasn't till a day later that we realized the transmission wasn't quite working right. And when we took the motor out of the water, then we realized that there was a whole section of the lower unit had broken right out. I guess it was a fracture that, some fatigue in it. And the reality was we were very lucky because the hole was so big that water was cooling down the gears and stopping them from overheating and seizing. So actually we could drive around and even got up to the nearest town to have a unit replaced without it seizing.
Yeah, and that was about a 27-mile voyage.
Oh, yeah. This is not what it says a lot for our Yamaha engine, actually. Right.
Well, for the record, I just want to add there that I was driving at the time, and the small reef that we made contact with was not on the GPS. It was not on the chip. And in fact, it wasn't even on the map.
Yeah, mind you, if it had been on the chip, we still wouldn't have found it because it would have been 500 to 50 yards away from where we really were.
Yeah, we all know your opinions on that.
Right, okay.
Well, the show's a jam-packed one today, so why don't we get right to it and move along to our first segment, which is a conversation with Holden Lewis of BB&T Capital Markets.
Okay.
Holden Lewis is an industry analyst for BB&T Capital Markets. He joins us again, as he does periodically, from their headquarters in Richmond, Virginia. Welcome back, Holden. It's been a while.
Yes, thank you for having me again, Eric.
Well, there has been no shortage of economic news lately, that's for sure. We are deluged with it, actually, and I hope that you can give fully threaded listeners a little bit of perspective here. On the one hand, we have lots of good news as far as industrial indicators are concerned. Of course, other indicators are not as clear. What can you tell us? What are you seeing out there?
Well, I think that the indicators that are out there right now are a perfect example of why being inundated with material every single month may not necessarily be for the best. And probably the best way to sort of talk about that is an indicator that I've talked to your listeners about a fair number of times, which is the ISM indicator. If you recall, it comes out on the first day of every month. Above 50 means the manufacturing sector is growing. Below means it's shrinking. It's been on a tear. A couple months ago, it was north of 60. That is a very strong, very hot reading. Obviously speaks well to how manufacturing has been working in recent months. And, the market that I deal with on a regular basis took the most recent reading, the June reading, which came in around 57, 56, 57, took that as a very negative read-through. And again, I guess on the face of it, dropping from 60, where you were 3 months ago, to 56, 57, where you were this most recent month, that's the type of trend that makes, I think, a lot of us on Wall Street relatively jittery. And I think that a lot of the correction that you saw in the industrial stocks were a reflection of that type of the metrics beginning to behave in sort of a decelerating fashion, let's say. But I have to tell you, when you take the aggregate of the monthly data as it relates to the industrial world, I am still very hard-pressed to find anything that is particularly negative. An ISM going from 60 to 56, 57, that just isn't a problem. Anything over 50 is growth. As you get later into a cycle, it's much more typical to have an ISM between 53 and 55 than it is at 60. And the fact that we're sort of moderating down into that range, that still says very positive things about industrial production, which of course is, in many cases, the key metric that yourselves, myself, and your listeners tend to track. And where industrial production is concerned, again, the news there is very positive. In May, industrial production was up 1.7% sequentially. It was the 11th straight sequential improvement in industrial production that we've seen since the recession really came to an end. And with the ISM north of 50, and with the ISM tending to lead industrial production domestically, that really does speak well for the back half of 2010. Durable goods orders, always choppy, but nonetheless, they're still relatively healthy. In fact, they've been up 3 of the last 4 months, including in May when they were up 2.6% sequentially. So, I have to say there's a lot of skittishness out there, but the indicators today continue to look very good, and the indications as we go into the second half of 2010 for the domestic industrial world still look very good. Now, there's a lot of smart people that look at these indicators, right? And I'm not going to tell you there's not some things that we need to keep a pretty close eye on. One of those things, and I think that's the most important thing, is the ISM reading in China, which actually dropped to 50.2. I think it was the July reading for them. And that obviously is really right on the cusp there between manufacturing expansion and contraction. We happen to think that China and Asia is an important region to help continue to drive the export activity and the general activity for the U.S. industrial sector. And if those Chinese readings were to build on themselves, in my mind, that would be a problem. But at this point, that's something that we have to watch. It's not necessarily something which is having any bearing on the market right now. So I think, as ever, one needs to be vigilant about what they're seeing and what they're hearing from their customers. But as I go through companies and data points right now, I'm not hearing anything negative out of those companies or those customers.
Let me ask you a specific question about what you're seeing. In previous conversations, we were kind of wrestling with this issue of whether or not some of the activity that was going on was really inventory rebuilding, or if we were kind of moving beyond that. Do you have a comment on that issue right now?
Yeah, I think that we can say that inventories are beginning to rebuild. Inventories probably troughed out or bottomed out back in December of 2009, and they really didn't move until, let's call it the March, April, May period, when you began to see some inventories ticking up. But, it really does need to be put into perspective, because whereas currently industrial production is sitting up, as I measure it, up almost 16% year to year through May, inventories, are only up 4% in the last 6 months, and they're still down on an annual basis. So I would say that you have begun to see people rebuilding their inventories, but this is not something which has gone crazy here. It is a process which has only begun, and I think there's still enough sort of realism among the customer set out there that no one's going to go crazy and add these inventories too quickly. But the good news is you have begun to see that inventory restocking cycle begin in the last 2 or 3 months. And hopefully what that'll do is, to this point, I think most of the industrial production improvements that we've seen have been a function of companies which had really taken their production down heavily, beginning to bring it back up to a more normal level now that they've gotten those inventories where they wanted them. And now the second leg of this hopefully will be some contribution from an inventory rebuild. And I think that that's sort of the leg that has begun here. So I think that, again, current environment, everything we're seeing is relatively positive.
Interesting. Well, I hope you're right on that. I know something else that you pay very close attention to is earning reports, and Fully Threaded listeners will be very interested to hear what you know about the recent Fastenal earnings report. What did you see? Anything positive, or was it not so positive, or what was it?
Well, generally speaking, and Fastenal reported their earnings today, but MSC Industrial, another distributor your listeners are no doubt aware of, they reported last week. So we've had a couple of these companies come out within the MRO and distribution space. And investors haven't liked the reports, by the way, but I think that has a lot more to do with sentiment and posturing because the reports themselves have been pretty positive. In MSC's case, they continue to see their top line accelerating. They've seen a big step up in terms of their operating margin because they're now starting to see the rebates come back, right? A year ago, you had issues because you were now purchasing less than you did the year before, so rebates were drying up. You had perhaps higher cost inventory in the mix a year ago. Now you're seeing the rebates coming back. The inventory issues are kind of behind us. Revenues are higher, so you're getting some leverage. And as a result, a name like MSC Industrial, they put up an operating margin in their May quarter of 15.6%, which is up 300 basis points sequentially and 330 basis points on a year-to-year basis. So, they were able to drive their revenue growth at a high rate, and that was able to drive the profitability. And I think you're really seeing the same thing out of Fastenal. Fastenal reported their second quarter, ended June today. Revenues were up 20%. Margins stepped up, the operating margins stepped up to 19.6%, which is about a 220 basis point improvement sequentially and more like a 490 basis point improvement on a year-to-year basis. And again, they're seeing the same things taking place. They're talking about old inventory being out of the system, old and costly inventory being out of the system. They're talking about rebates coming back. They're talking about an environment which, though I don't sense that there's a lot of pricing in here at this point, the environment is much more favorable towards inflation than deflation right now, and just generally laying out a picture, I think, of industrial conditions remain healthy enough, and they're having some success leveraging those conditions into some decent margin growth. Cash generation for these companies is not quite as great, only because they are building up their working capital in anticipation of further growth. But the common thread we've seen for Fastenal and MSC is relatively good earnings growth. Relatively good revenue growth and ability to leverage that into solid enough operating margins and cash flows which are positive, and therefore continuing to sort of make more flexible the financial structures these guys operate under.
Interesting stuff. Many Fully Threaded listeners are, of course, a little bit smaller than those two companies, but I think there's definitely some information that we can glean from that's going to provide some basis for enthusiasm.
That's right, and don't forget, Eric, also for your listeners, that we do include sort of our analysis of the results of these companies, as well as an analysis of the macro data in the weekly publication that we print that is made available through your site.
That's a good point, and I'll remind Fully Threaded listeners that there's a newsletter that Holden just referred to that's available, and you can receive it. It's very worthwhile. Just go to the fullythreaded.com website, go to the homepage, and you can sign up to receive that on a weekly basis. We hope everyone will take advantage of that. No charge for that. Holden Lewis, you are an analyst for BB&T Capital Markets. We really appreciate your perspectives as usual, and I hope you'll join us again.
I look forward to it. Thanks for having me on, Eric.
fastenersclearinghouse.com. Search and source from over 500,000 line items, or just a mouse click away and available at no charge. When the need arises, you won't find a better place to locate hard-to-find fastener inventory. It's where you need to be.
This is Joe Truckee of Cal Fasteners, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for us.
This is Robert Wanzer, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for American Imperial.
This is Andy Pell from ScrewCrew.com, and FCH works for the fastener industry.
Join the sourcing network now and show your inventory to a whole new market. Turn slow movers into cash. List up to 10,000 line items. Show them to distributors only or to the world. FastenersClearinghouse.com. It's where you need to be.
This is Chris from Hudson Fasteners, Fastener News at Twitter, and Fascinating Domains. And you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric, back with you. You know, listening to Holden, this whole decompression process coming back into civilization, it's not so bad. I kind of feel a little bit better. He makes me feel good.
Well, good, because it depends on which paper you're reading or which website you're reading. It's a little hard to know what really is happening over the fastener industry is a broad industry. Some places people are all excited, and some have indicators that it's bad, but it's very inconsistent. That's all I know.
Well, I think to summarize this, the creepy thing is that the industrial indicators do not match the many, many kind of more ominous macro indicators. And the headlines that we see from all over the place, I mean, even on the same websites, in the same newspapers, they seem very contradictory. And I think that has a lot of people really it's causing upheaval.
Well, and confused, okay. I mean, at least.
Well, in our first feature segment, we talked with Rich Cavoto of Metric and Multistandard Components Corporation, and he was actually pretty positive on what's been happening as of late.
Right, and they have a different perspective, and they cover a fair range of the U.S., actually. So they have a pretty good knowledge of what's going on. They've also been FCH members for a fair while.
That's right. We talk about that a little bit. You know, one thing I wanted to point out before we play this segment, though, we didn't actually call out his website, and if you want to check out the website for Metric and Multistandard, you can find it at www.metricmcc.com. One of the cool things on that site is under the Tech Info link. If you go out there, there's a kind of an online PDF, and they've got a lot of technical information out there. We allude to a little bit of it in the conversation that we have, but it's well worth a look. So why don't we get to it, and here's Rich Cavoto of Metric and Multistandard Components Corporation. We're joined now by Rich Cavoto. He's the National Sales Manager for Metric and Multistandard Components Corporation. And boy, that's a mouthful, Rich. Welcome to Fully Threaded Radio.
Hey, glad to be here, guys. That's why when we answer the phone, 90% of the time we just go Metric Components, but Metric and Multi is the official name.
Well, you've been in business long enough that people generally know who you are. And how long has the company been around, actually?
Company's been in business 47 years now. Started way back out of one of the three original owners' garages out in New York, in Yonkers, New York, and have progressed now to 5 stocking warehouse locations with salespeople, and I've been with them myself for about 30 years of that, so kind of been here from the ground up, so to speak.
Well, you're based out of the Chicago branch, which is actually located in Burr Ridge, a western suburb, and a lot of folks in the industry know you, and that's why you're a well-known company, and you've been with them a long time.
Yep, it's definitely paying off the number of years.
Now, I have to ask you before we get too far into this, there's a good-looking guy there on the homepage of the website for Metric and Multi, and how often do people ask you, "Hey, Rich, is that you?"
I'm sure we cherry-picked that off of something. I did request putting everyone's picture up to see who people are talking to that don't know some of the salespeople, but that got shot down real quick by the salespeople. So either they can come meet us at our individual locations or at one of the shows.
Uh-huh. One thing I got to ask you right up front here is what percentage of your business actually is metric tools, and how much is fasteners actually?
Well, the fasteners are definitely the bulk of our business. It's probably a solid 80 to 85%. But the other products that we carry, the cutting tools, the wrenches, the measuring tools, we can also get into hydraulics, it's probably 10 to 15% combined. The cutting tools and wrenches are probably 3, 4, 5% each. But the nuts and bolts and washers and rods and whatnot are the bulk of our sales.
Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on specifically with metric and multi, but just in general, if you'd care to, do you have any comments on what you're seeing out there in the industry right now? What's going on right now in terms of just business in general?
Well, obviously, compared to 2009, things are definitely a little bit better. Most of the industry last year, from what I heard, was 15 to 50%. Where most companies fell into. And this year, a lot of people, word on the street, especially in the Chicagoland areas, things are definitely hustling and bustling, and people are definitely keeping busy. I'm not sure if everyone brought all their people back after the, house cleaning, so to speak, but it's definitely picking up, and hopefully it continues. I know the stock market isn't real friendly to what's going on out there the last couple of weeks, but hopefully that's turning around the last couple of days here, and we can move up and get people back to work and get everyone back full time and create some more jobs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Our impression, from talking to quite a lot of people in the Chicago area, this is a little earlier on in the year, was that while business was a little bit better, it still in terms of the Midwest was nothing really to write home about. But you're saying things seem to have improved a little bit in the last couple of months.
Well, with the locations we have, New York, Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, and Reno, the Midwest is definitely holding up or picking up the fastest and the most right now. Atlanta's obviously picking up a little bit itself down there in the Southeast. They're definitely holding their own down in the Southwest. The West Coast is a little slow, and the East Coast is a little slow. Yep. From our perspective, but it's definitely a whole lot better than it was 12 months ago.
Right. Yeah, our figures show that too. But we were originally showing that Midwest was not really doing great for the first part of this year anyway.
No, it's definitely picked up, I think, the second quarter for sure, and off to a pretty good start here this month. So,
okay.
At least for as far as the metric world goes.
Yeah, well, that's good because July is sort of usually a bit of a slow month, isn't it?
Yeah, you know what? They kind of shut it down over there in Europe, July and August, especially, some of the suppliers that we use in Germany. They pretty much go on holiday the whole month of August. So it's a little tougher getting some of our C&D and our cutting tools and wrenches from them on a speedy basis, but they actually keep someone in there now to keep us going.
Right, yeah.
Now, speaking of business activity in general, I know you have a variety of customers that you sell to, but what's your opinion on this whole question of whether what we're seeing in terms of business increasing is inventory restocking or kind of a phase of restocking versus business in general just picking up or industry in general just picking up? Where do you stand on that question?
Well, as far as the inventories go, I think everyone let their inventory run so low that the last 2 months of last year, which we thought were going to be totally dead, weren't that bad. And then it continued to pick up right on January, February, and this year and kept kind of going. I think people let their inventories run down so low that third quarter last year that they had to obviously replenish them. I still think people are walking a little bit on eggshells, not really knowing what this administration is doing as far as, bailing people out, how much of a deficit there's going to be out there. It's just still kind of hard to tell. That's why a lot of people haven't brought their full, probably work staff back to work.
the low point in all our activity as we measure it was November, I guess beginning of November, and then over November it started to pick up, and December was a bit of a pickup too.
Right. I mean, definitely above our projections for those 2 months, and then, we pretty much exceeded our monthly expectations and our goals for the most part the whole year. Obviously not back to the 08 days, but, it's when you jump in a 12-foot hole, you have to take your time getting out of it, and you can't just jump right out. So be careful, get out of this, and move forward.
Yeah.
Create some jobs.
Now, we were talking before we started recording about some of the things that you're doing in terms of your ISO certification, and I'm just curious, do you ever take some slower times and work on programs to kind of improve quality, or what's your approach to that, and where are you in the whole certification process?
Well, we're ISO 9001 2008 certified out of our New York location, and the branches do follow the same procedures. And they have audits on a regular basis, making sure all the procedures are obviously up to date. So as far as the ISO certification goes, they're on top of it and moving forward to keep up with it.
So it's kind of an ongoing thing then. It's really not affecting, or it's really not affected by what's going on in the economy. You're just always kind of striving toward achieving better quality.
Yeah, that's been a goal. That's been a goal for Metric and Multi. And all that ISO started a few years back to, keep up with the industry and keep up with some of the larger corporations that we deal with to be certified to a standard that's recognized throughout the United States and/or the country to make sure our procedures are correct and we follow them.
Yeah, I mean, there's significant advantages. If you're a big company that is buying from Metric and Multistandard, there's advantages in buying from if the company itself is certified, buying from another certified company, aren't they? Because a lot of the quality control procedures don't necessarily apply if you're buying from a quality certified company.
Right, and like I said, we pretty much have been on this since the ISO certification came out, probably, I think, 10 years ago. I think in 2000 when we first originally were approved. So, and we definitely keep up to date, and I think we're one of the first ISO 9001 2008 companies with our certificate.
Yeah.
Well, let's turn the subject a little bit to what you've got going on at Metric and Multistandard. Anything happening in terms of new products or new offerings these days?
Well, we did come up with a new tap that we get from one of our quality suppliers in Germany. It's called a hex tap. It's a double-ended tap. One end is a plug style, and the other end is a bottoming style that is used mainly for cleaning holes or redoing some holes that have damaged threads. You don't really need a tap wrench to put it in. You can use a hex key. There's a hex key on top of it that you can drive, or you can actually use a wrench or a hex bit socket. All that information is on our website and our line card. And we've been having them at the shows and kind of showing people, a little different aspect than the nuts and bolts, just something new out there that we have. We also carry their V-coil kits. The company is Vocal out of Germany. Very similar to the Helicoil brand, but it's the V-coil Vocal brand of helicoils, which is also new for us.
How do you spell that, Vocal?
Voelkel. It's
okay.
a Vocal. It's a Vocal brand threading solution. We actually have links on our website to their website. They make all of our cutting tools, our taps and dies and wrenches, and all different variety of cutting tools. There's one thing that Metric and Multi kind of prides itself in is the quality. With the wrenches and the cutting tools, and some of our C and D items that we obviously can't get in the Far East. We source through our company in Germany. They kind of have a global sourcing for us. We actually own a company in Germany that buys our miscellaneous items, our cutting tools, our wrenches, some of our fittings, and the C&D items. And, kind of like I said before, it's something that the quality is still there, and we kind of pride ourselves in that. And delivery and service from them is second to none. We get an air freight every week from them and a sea freight every month from them. So there's definitely a lot of product coming in to our guys in Germany.
Oh, whereabouts in Germany is that company based?
Near Hamburg.
Oh, okay. Yep. No, I know it well.
So you mentioned the shows, and you're showing this at some of the shows that you do. Now, I know that you're at NIFS East and West. What other shows are you folks involved in?
We went to the new show in Branson, the All-American show.
Oh, how'd that work out?
Tabletop show. That was a pretty good show. I mean, for the first-time show, there was about 35 or 38 exhibitors, probably 50 to 75 people walking through. It was just a nice little area. I mean, Branson, Missouri is definitely, you're going to see customers that you're probably not going to see in Vegas or maybe in Ohio. You're just going to, get some people in that area. I know they're going to do it again next year and tie golf outing into it. We also do all the regional tabletop shows. Chicago just had theirs last month, which I did see you guys there, and that was a great show. They had solid 80, 85 tabletops and a great turnout and golf outing the next day. So
yeah, it was a good show.
Despite the rain for the golf, you mean?
Yeah, really. After 12 holes, we just kind of threw in our umbrellas and said we're done.
Right. I think you did pretty well to last 12 holes, I think.
Yeah, really. We should have had the show the second day and the golf outing the first day. The first day the weather was beautiful.
Yeah.
But Nancy Rich does just a great job with the Midwest Fastener Association. And like I said, we do all the tabletop shows in our areas. John out in Reno does California. Jim down in the Southeast. I was down in Texas. They had a big Southwest Fastener show a couple months back, and they had the Eastern show. I think it's in September. That I'll probably run out there and do with our guys in New York.
Okay. Good.
Such is the life of the national sales manager.
Right.
It kind of goes in spurts, but it's definitely bouncing around.
So, how does FCH play into all of this? What kind of activity do you guys see? What do you use it for in the kind of the grand mix with your sales approach?
Well, I mean, we basically threw up our 10,000 items a year or so ago now, and getting ready to reload that plus I think some more we're going to throw at you. And I hear nothing but good things. I see some of the stuff they'll send me from. We have two people. We have the West Coast and East Coast kind of handling it all. And John kind of takes care of for the most part, everything on the West Coast, and Joel takes care of everything on the East Coast. And it's definitely paid for itself many times over. So it's a nice little easy way to put all your inventory or most of your inventory up on the web.
Speaking of John Gaudette, you mentioned over in Reno, isn't he?
Yeah. Yep.
And he was telling me once that he thought that the metric market in the US is about 11 or 12% varying. How do you see? I mean, do you see that metric is going to one day replace the imperial stuff? I mean, given that they call it imperial, but even the British don't use it anymore.
Well, the British have gone away with their Whitworth system. They converted to metric, I think, in 1976. We actually do still carry some Whitworth threads and British pipe and British fine thread. But as far as the imperial goes, since metric is the only game I've ever played for the last 30 years, it's definitely increasing. I mean, we have when I first started, you can count on one hand how many people sold metric. Now you probably need both hands and your feet. There's more competition out there. It's definitely increasing. If you want to sell any OEM parts outside the United States, they want metric on it. So it's kind of one of those sneaky, you don't know unless you're in the industry, obviously, that your car, your bike, your refrigerators, your appliances, they're sneaking metric. So it's definitely coming. I just don't know how fast it's going to get to 20%, but probably 10 to 15% is a realistic number right now.
Right.
But I would defer that to an American supplier to see how much metric's coming.
Yeah. Well, my view is that one of the reasons is since so much of the stuff sold in the US is made in China, and the Chinese have, dived into metric years ago.
Right.
So it's natural for them to use.
Right. And, Europe obviously has been metric forever, but it's definitely a question for maybe someone who's selling both.
Yeah.
maybe a heads guy or something could probably give you a better number on the breakdown of percentages metric.
Yeah, and we'll pass that question on to someone else as well. It interests me because I have lived in both worlds. I mean, I grew up in a country that used the British imperial system for everything, including money, which is horrific. But we changed over to metric, and it after the changeover, I mean, life just became so easy. It's just easier to do everything. It just amazes me.
It's definitely a very simple system. I mean, you're talking, 10, 100, and 1,000 kind of converts everything. So it's a simpler system. As a matter of fact, I probably knew the metric system a whole lot better than I did the American system as far as calling off bolts and whatnot. And it's just a whole lot easier to work with. But unless you work with it on a regular basis, I guess it might be a little Chinese, so to speak.
Yeah. Another question for you, and it relates to the standards committees in the US, and I know they've been issuing a few of the metric standards, I guess Americanized metric standards. And the question I have for you is, given the fact that the standards, originally the DIN standards actually, I mean, say some of the newer ISO, but really the DIN standards are so well recognized throughout the world. What's the relevance of the ANSI Standards Committee creating its own set of metric standards? Why wouldn't it just use the DIN standards?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we obviously, when I started, everything was to the DIN. And if, even when we brought in some unique parts, we gave it a DIN number that was close to something that it was originally for, originally like, I should say. I think they're basically capping the standards. I mean, the ISO and the DIN right now, other than a 10, 12, and a 14 millimeter across the flats on hex bolts, the ISO versus the DIN, the actual technical information for any part is the same. So, I mean, obviously, people are Googling all the time an ISO number, and when you Google an ISO number, it'll tell you the DIN number. You Google an ANSI number, it'll tell you the ISO and the DIN number. So it's definitely, we don't see too much of the ANSI here. We see more of obviously the DIN and the ISO. But we do see the ANSI numbers, and we just kind of cross-reference, and/or we tell them we're quoting DIN only.
Right. I mean, we see all of those, but there's a very small number of the ANSI searches that have the M after them that I guess signifies the metrics. And we see the great bulk, even from all over the world, is really is DIN as opposed to ISO.
Right. I mean, DIN obviously was the leader, especially for fasteners. And then the ISO jumped in for the International Standards Organization, which basically all the technical aspects and dimensions of a fastener are the same. It's just a different number. They just wanted to maybe take it out of Germany's hands and make it an international number. So
that's the European Committee, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even in our catalog, was drafted up by one of our original owners, Milan Pesky, and he was smart enough to know 15, 16 years ago, he put the DIN numbers in our book and the ISO numbers right next to them. So, or similar to ISO number.
Right.
So we kind of had both of those for a long time, and it really kind of kicked in maybe 10 years ago. People were trying to convert it, but you still see both, and a lot of people refer to the good old DIN number.
Right. Well, we use both, and a lot of our lookups will be on the basis that it will look for a DIN number first, and if it doesn't find it, it'll look for the ISO equivalent.
Right.
And we've had those things floating around, those lookups, for ages.
I mean, when you're talking, the ANSI, American National Standards Institute, I think it stands for. When you're talking a metric part, when you throw American in front of it, it takes a little bit away from the good old metric system.
One day maybe it will be part of it.
Well, it could be. I mean, it definitely could be.
I don't know how many Americans could agree with you guys.
Right.
But for your sake, Rich, I hope it's a lot.
Yeah, the more metric the merrier, as far as we're concerned.
Actually, this is not necessarily associated with fasteners, but New Zealand changed over from the British imperial system to the metric system while I was doing my engineering degree, and it was an absolute nightmare because we spent 1 year working everything out in pounds and feet and poundals and all the things that go with the imperial, and then suddenly all our exam questions changed over to the ISO standard, and we were completely lost in everything because none of us had any feeling for what we were working out. So, but we changed over weights, measurement, all our weights, and the counting system, which used to be the British pound system.
Right.
It was a nightmare.
Well, they tried to pull that off on America about, 25, 30 years ago, Rich, was it? And,
it was. I think it was in the late 70s or early 80s there, and they had the kilometers up on the road and the liters full of gas, but that definitely didn't last. The only thing that kind of lasted are the millimeters and the nuts and bolts.
Right. Well, we'll have to have you on the show again when we have some kind of a breakthrough. You were talking about the administration and some of the weirdness that's going on right now out of Washington. Maybe they're going to revisit that whole thing. You never know. Maybe they'll inflict that on us, and we'll have to have you on, and we could talk about strategies to help some of the other distributors out there.
And be glad to do it, guys. It was fun.
Well, thanks, Rich. We've been talking with Rich Cavoto. He's the National Sales Manager with Metric and Multistandard Components Corporation, and we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Hi, mate.
Coming up next, Mike McGuire. Stick around.
This is Sue Rice with the FCH team. It's my job to make sure that as an FCH member, you receive the highest possible benefit from your participation in the network. Did you know that once you're logged into FCH, you have access to exclusive search tools, site statistics, and tracking information about your inventory and source finder inquiries? It's all just a click away, and I'm happy to walk you through it. If it's time to refresh your inventory, don't worry. We'll run your listings through our scrubber software and get you up and running in a very short time. If you can attach a spreadsheet to an email, you can list inventory on FCH. We can also show you how to optimize your listings to attract the most hits for your type of fastener. Send email to Sue at fastenersclearinghouse.com and let me help you get the most from the FCH sourcing network. I look forward to hearing from you soon.
Murray with Untitled Chapter, your source for VMI on the West Coast. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
We're joined again by American Fastener Journal publisher, Mr. Mike McGuire. Mike, welcome back. It's your second time on Fully Threaded Radio.
Well, good to be with you guys, and I'm enjoying the progress you guys have made over the last several months, and I wish you a continued luck and success.
Good, and we're going to make lots more progress over the next few months.
Oh, good.
And we really do appreciate your comments. You've been kind of passing along a little bit of your wisdom as we've been going, and we really do appreciate that a lot. You know, last time we were talking about your tidbits section in Fastener News Now that's on your website. And that's at fastenerjournal.com. And that's probably a good place for us to launch our conversation today. There's quite a bit in there, actually, for kind of a slow time of the year news-wise. And I noticed one of the things that you kind of got out there right up front was you were alluding to the fact that somewhat recently you'd had a surgery. And I know you were unfortunately not able to make the Columbus show, and folks were really curious about that. I was wondering if you wanted to make a comment on that and put a little bit of a detail to that question.
Well, I actually had a lap band 4 years ago put in, and I had to have an emergency surgery to have her removed, and it's one of these things that was supposed to be 45 minutes and go home tonight. well, I was in intensive care for 7 days, and then got released from the hospital and was home for a few days, and had to go back for another week. I had I still have it actually, an extremely rare microbacteria that we're treating, and so actually during the show I was in the hospital, so was only able, of course, to come back to Columbus. But I did get daily reports and heard that it was a good, successful show for many people. In fact, just this morning, I got the attendee brochure that's going to go out in the mail for Las Vegas, probably in the next day or two. We're presently at 615 booths, and last year we had 622. So we're 7 short of where we were last year. I'm sure we'll sell those out in the next 3.5 months.
Oh, I think so.
And, somewhere, hopefully we'll be at 650 to 675, maybe even 700 booths, who knows. The machinery section, which we made a deal with this past year with the International Fastener Machinery Association, they've already got 22 booths, and they are promising a sellout. And then, Eric, of course, one of the things you'll be involved in will be the new, we call it Information and Education Center, which will be actually on the exhibit floor, and we have 4 one-hour sessions scheduled on a variety of topics. And, you and I have talked about Fastener Radio being actually the last one, because we think you'll run over an hour, and you'll be wanting to probably interview or talk with various exhibitors or attendees at the show. That's a new feature this year. And, of course, we're loaded with seminars. We got them on, we got the Fastening Technology Workshop, which is put on by Glenn Bendorf, and then print reading, solid molding, computer-aided fastener assembly components. We have a Fastener Industry Finance, Treasury, Credit, and Controllers meeting, and we have one to FARS. We have one on mergers and acquisitions, looking at the supply chain in 2011, beyond that being done by the NFDA. And Mary Lou Adderman, is having her Women in the Fastener Industry meeting. And then actually the International Fastener Machinery Association is having a meeting along with ASME B18. So there'll be a lot of activities the day before the show on the floor. And of course, we always have a popular welcome reception. So we're excited about Las Vegas, and think it'll be a much bigger show than last year. And business, of course, is better this year than it was last. So there should be, like I say, a lot more activity.
It sounds like a lot of progress has been made since last year, that's for sure. And way to segue out of the Columbus show into Vegas, too, by the way, Mike. Good job.
Right. Well, I'm still trying to get my segue in the trade show.
Well, you're good at it. Hey, listen, during your comments there, you alluded to the better business that you were seeing in general in the fastener world, and do you care to comment on anything in particular that you're seeing right now?
Well, we talk to suppliers and, of course, distributors on a daily basis. And generally, I'd say everybody's up 10% or so. It's a slow return, although I heard a shocking statistic. I know one distributor I talked to yesterday, he's gone from $6 million to $13 million in the last year, and he's just not sure why, but this business is unbelievable. But we're hearing, every month a little bit, business is getting better and better. Comments, at least it's not heading south like it was, 18 months ago. Rob, you want to say anything about that, or just hold on just a second? Hey, Eric.
Hey, Rob Lucas.
Yes,
how are you,
Mr. Lucas? How are you? I'm fine.
Stopped out here in Arizona and figured I'd say hi to you guys.
Surprise guest Rob Lucas drops in. You're globetrotting as usual, and you're currently in Scottsdale, Arizona. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is correct. I don't seem to ever get home anymore. How you guys been?
We don't have any complaints. We're back in the saddle and putting another FTR together.
Yeah, and that sounds like the message I'm hearing from most of the distributors. Things are positive. I've heard from several customers of mine that in June they had either record-breaking months or better months than they had forecasted, but I think the bulk of them are record-breaking. And when I say record-breaking, it's highest sales they've had in the company's history. So
well, I haven't heard that everywhere, I must say that, but that's good.
No, I haven't. It's not everywhere, but it's resoundingly on the higher end of the negatives. I hear fewer people say it's bad and more people say it's good, so I'm weighing the odds and saying things are looking much better than they have been.
Okay, good.
And back in the States from the last time we chatted, I was in Shanghai. Did the Shanghai Fastener Show. I'm back now, and it seems to me that things are progressing fairly well for everyone. I did have a little bit of, I guess, some info for you guys and the listeners about freight and the market in Asia. There is some cost reductions that are rumored to be happening in steel in mainland China and potentially in Taiwan. I think that has to do with, obviously, the economy and some anti-dumping issues that are going on. I also heard that freight is going to be a bear until October at the earliest. You've got a premium shipping time now for, everybody's buying Christmas stuff that's coming across. And they're on slow steam for the vessels. The half-haggloids and the big carriers of the world are trying to recuperate some of the loss they got from last year. So they're incurring premium shipping charges, $400 or $500 extra per box to get your stuff loaded. The real message that I heard in the last week was it's almost impossible to get anything booked if you're not ahead of the game. If you're trying to book it at last minute, you're going to be stuck. There are customers out there that have had several containers on boats for 30 to 60 days sitting in the port.
Wow.
So there may be some distress for people trying to ship product in the next 4 to 5 months.
Well, given your understanding of the market currently, what's the effect of this going to be on your average mid-size fastener distributor? What's going to come down?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I think that a lot of people have to buy because they don't have inventory. I also think that there is some uptick in the market. I don't necessarily believe it's going to be a continuous uptick or a solid spike, but I think that at this point, people have held off as long as they can. They're still trying to hold off, keeping their cash as tight as possible, but there's still demand out there, and people still have to operate a business. They still have to do some of the things they want. So there's some activity in the world of fasteners. I think that if prices go lower and the economy stays the way it is, that trend will continue throughout the rest of the year. That's my 2 cents worth of forecast of what it could be. It looks better than it has been the first half of the year, I can tell you that. And I have seen a whole lot of activity personally throughout the travels and just computer work-wise and quotes. There is a lot of activity going on. Now, out of that activity, I bet you 20% of it is just people that are quoting to quote and price checking. But the other 80% is, I think, real product that's out to be sourced. And that is a clear increase from January through April. Back then it was 50%. You'd see quotes that were, just someone trying to keep their job or quoting to just check it out. Now I actually think it's activity.
Huh, okay. That's good.
Yeah, so it's relatively positive. There's also some negatives to it, but it is what it is. Everybody who plays in this world knows the ups and downs of the fastener business.
Right. Okay, well, our own view is that the business was all over the board. It was, some people saw reasonable increase. I couldn't even tie it back to specific regions. It used to be that we could sort of say, well, the Southwest is sort of doing all right, the Midwest isn't. Then I talked to someone who said the Midwest is actually doing fine. Parts of the Southwest have dropped away because of the problems in drilling. Yeah.
And that's probably an accurate statement. Most of the market is east of the Mississippi is where most of the industrial market's at. When you cross west of the Mississippi, it's construction, drilling, oil, until you hit California, and that's probably an accurate statement. But I have to say, just from what I see, the last 2 years, it was rare to see anybody that was trying to source a commodity part. If it was a standard part and they could find it somewhere, they weren't buying it, which was a clear indication they were sitting on their cash. Now I'm seeing people in large volume, in large mass, looking for the standards, the A items, the commodity parts. So I think that's an indication of there's something has happened to inventory. It's either been moved or sold or liquidated, and people are rebuying it. Now, does that mean it's going to be rebought again or continuous? I don't know the answer to that.
I have a question about the steel prices.
Yeah.
How much of the dip in steel prices currently is due to a reduced demand in China, and what is that really telling us, or what can we read into that?
Well, I don't know if there's an actual figure that's tied to that. What is happening is you've got, obviously a very, very weak economy globally. You've got a euro that's in trouble. you've got a U.S. dollar that's in trouble, and you've got a whole lot of pressure on China from the rest of the world to change their valuation of their yuan. What they are doing, I think, is they're having problems with, obviously, the anti-dumping into Europe. It's increased, and it's going to be a continuous pain for them, which means a lot of the demand that they saw in the past that went to Europe isn't there anymore. And because there's the opportunity still to sell to the States and other locations, they're being aggressive with pricing to try to secure some of this business to maintain their production. That's going to really dictate into price. They're going to lower their costs to be competitive to keep this export monster flowing. How long will that last? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think there's a finite number to it that you can really throw as a percentage. The rumors that I'm hearing are that mainland China, is going to decrease the value of steel this quarter. And the other rumor behind that, of course, is potentially that CSC and Taiwan will do that. But those are, again, rumors, and I'm hearing those from vendors in Asia. I don't have any concrete evidence to say let's go dance in the streets about it. But what I can say is over the last 3 months of me quoting, I haven't seen tremendous increases. As a matter of fact, I've seen most things stay the same. So there has not been an uptick in pricing. So if that indicates anything, I think that it's at least stable.
Such as the end of the rumor mill that was predicting these skyrocketing prices a couple months back.
Right. Well, this world's going to change, I think, on a weekly basis as you see Spain and everybody else is having trouble in the U.S. As the economies and the dollars weaken or strengthen. I think people adjust for that. And if there was a huge demand in China domestically for product and they were gobbling up more resources than even they predicted, I think you see costs go up. But we haven't seen that, so there's an indication that even they're not as aggressively growing as they expected to be. No one is immune to a bad economy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, it was a surprise to talk to you, and we look forward to talking to you again in kind of a more formal segment where we get a wrap-up of the
Shanghai,
the Shanghai show. And
of the Shanghai
I got
show.
a few topics I'd love to talk to you guys about. Maybe we could arrange that for your next FTR broadcast.
Okay.
I'd love to listen to this thing, and I promote it, so I didn't mean to steal McGuire's thunder. I just figured I'd surprise you guys.
Right.
I got to hop in a car now and go somewhere else, and I'll call you guys from my next stop, and you never know where I'll be.
Okay. That's cool.
I'll give you guys back to McGuire, and you guys have a great day.
Okay, same to you, mate.
See you guys.
Yep.
Thanks, Rob.
Back from China. So, one other thing I might just mention on the Fastener Show West, starting actually today, the 14th, people can start to register online if they want to at fastenershows.com.
Just out of curiosity, what percentage of show attendees register online versus through the mail or versus through walking up at the show?
I'm going to take a little bit of a stab at this, but about 50%.
Wow.
I honestly don't get involved in that part of it, but it continues to grow, the number of people register online. Again, like in the September-October issue of the American Fastener Journal, we'll have an update. We'll have a list of all the exhibitors, and then we'll have, of course, a registration form if people want to fill that out and send it in.
What else do you have in store for us with the next issue of American Fastener Journal, Mike?
Well, our summer issue, we call it, summer purchasing issue, is in the mail, and it's where we always highlight the Fastener Literature Profile issue. And, of course, we have our typical technical articles and economic forecast, the stock report, and the import report from Zopal. So our standard features are always in there. Actually, probably the thing I announced in this issue, the July-August issue, is I made a business decision. The American Fastener Journal will no longer take advertising from foreign suppliers that want to sell direct to an American distributor without having an operation in the United States. It just doesn't make sense if Heads and Threads or Porteous or XL or whatever is buying from a supplier in say, China, then they also desire to turn right around and sell that same product direct to the distributor in the United States. So we're going very pro-American, buy American, made in the USA. We still have our contacts overseas with all the different magazines, and we exchange news items all the time. But we're just not going to take ads anymore. I mean, we've already lost several ads from China, Taiwan, Malaysia, but that's just so be it. That's just going to be the direction of our magazine. We ran our actual last, say, foreign or international ad last January, February issue. So hopefully we're going to try to support the American fastener supplier, the manufacturer, the importer, or the master distributor even better than we have in the past.
Well, that's a tricky subject, as everybody knows.
Yeah. It's a little gray area in some things. But we have some very large suppliers in this country that are foreign-owned, but they do have operations here. They're hiring Americans. They're buying or renting, leasing buildings. They're paying our taxes, our city, state, federal taxes. So we'll consider them like an American supplier. But it's the guy that wants to sell direct, say from Taiwan, direct to the distributor here in the United States, and say bypassing the importer, if you will.
I'm thinking about some of the comments that I've heard over the last few months about the American Fastener, or the All-American Fastener show that was down in Branson. I know you're very well aware of that. And some of the conversations that go on and surrounding that are also a little touchy because, again, it's kind of a prickly issue, let's face it. I wonder, do you have any feel for the segment of Asian companies that are going to be participating in NIFS West this year? Is that expanding? Is it kind of stabilized? Where's that?
The number is growing. It's going to be at least 30%. Part of it is their governments, the Taiwanese government, the Chinese government. They support that industry and put together a package for companies. So it makes it their numbers are growing. And they're very aggressive. It's truly for the Chinese and Taiwanese and NICROB that support this, but for them it's truly a global market. We're no longer the largest show in the world, but we are the largest show in North America.
Is it Stuttgart that's the number one show right now? Is that it?
I think it is, yeah. I think Stuttgart is, yeah.
Well, NIFS can't be far behind, that's for sure.
No, we're close, and we're not. We're not in it to be the biggest or the largest. Yes, we advertised it for years, but it was a fact at that time.
You might reconsider that whole free beer idea.
Yeah, I was wondering when that was going to come up.
The free beer?
Yeah, blow right past Stuttgart. That's what I say.
That's right.
Well, yeah. Well, we do it. They historically have done a very good job of alcohol consumption in Columbus, but something we can make. We can have a board meeting on, I'm sure.
Do you think this is a problem in the Midwest here?
No comment.
Okay.
Well, getting back to the tidbits section in the Fastener News Now, you alluded to the fact that there were a couple of big stories that you were kind of waiting to launch. Is the time right to let one of those out of the bag now? Or?
No, not yet. They are heating up actually, and they'll be covered by news releases. So, and they would be much more than just a tidbit. It would be a regular, full-fledged news release or story almost when they do happen.
Okay, I'm angling for an exclusive here on FTR, Mike, is what I'm doing.
Well, you'll probably see it on Fastener News Now first.
Well, okay, fair enough. I'll ask you then, what are you going to be doing between now and NIFS West? Obviously, recuperating, and there's a lot to do to prep for the show and so forth. Any other big events coming up for you?
Not really. We're working on a September-October issue for the magazine. We also have a September issue of the Aerospace Fastener e-zine coming out in September, and we actually are starting to prepare what we're going to do in our booth in Las Vegas, but we haven't finalized our plans there yet, but we're working on it.
You got to keep turning the crank.
Yep. But e-zine has been a very enjoyable experience, and we continue on a daily basis to get people to subscribe to it. And what's amazing, the digital version of the magazine continues to grow again on a daily basis. We're still getting 5 to 6 people from literally around the world sign up for it for the digital version. India has been extremely active, but in the last 2 weeks they've probably taken or registered probably 50% of the registration. Something has hit home in India all of a sudden.
Interesting.
So, yeah. But there's some things coming up that will be of interest to the fastener industry. Talking about the wind energy, which I think is a hot topic in the industry, is John Grabner of Cardinal, of course, was appointed advisor on the Wind Energy Association. But there's a big conference coming up. It's actually called the Wind Energy Conference. It's going to occur in Cedar Rapids, August 31st to September 1st, and it's for all suppliers of any components to the wind energy. So I think that will be attended by several fastener companies. That industry still seems to be extremely hot.
I'm sure you'll be covering that in American Fastener Journal as well.
Yeah, we'll touch base on that too.
Well, keep us posted, Mike. I really appreciate you joining us once again, and it's always a pleasure. I'm also glad to hear that you're recuperating well.
Thank you. Yeah, we're fine. We'll be back in the battle here shortly.
Good.
Good to hear it. Mike McGuire, we will be paying attention to www.fastenerjournal.com, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
More Fully Threaded coming up.
fastenersclearinghouse.com. Search and source from over 500,000 line items, all just a mouse click away and available at no charge. When the need arises, you won't find a better place to locate hard-to-find fastener inventory. It's where you need to be.
This is Joe Truckee of Cal Fasteners, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for us.
This is Robert Wanzer, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for American Imperial.
This is Andy Pell from ScrewCrew.com, and FCH works for the fastener industry.
Join the sourcing network now and show your inventory to a whole new market. Turn slow movers into cash. List up to 10,000 line items. Show them to distributors only or to the world. FastenersClearinghouse.com. It's where you need to be.
Hi, Bob O'Brien of Certified Products in Chicago. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio, the largest proponent of free beer in the fastener industry.
Brian and Eric, Fully Threaded.
Right.
Well, it was good to hear Mike McGuire's recovering okay, and he's planning on being at the Las Vegas show. It was a little weird, him not being in Columbus this year.
Yeah, you had said, because you were, I wasn't at that show, but you had said it was a little bit strange and people were sort of wondering what was going on.
It was also kind of weird to have Rob pop in there. I wasn't expecting that.
Right, he didn't tell us that, I don't think.
Is there anywhere that guy doesn't go?
I don't know.
I tell you, I think he's set the new record now as the most frequently appearing Fully Threaded guest.
And the most globe-trotting one for us, too.
That's right. Well, I think listeners are appreciating the wide perspective that we bring, and I think we're achieving our mission in that part of things. So hopefully we'll hear from folks, and you can tell us how we're doing. Or if you have suggestions, we're always eager to hear those, too. Email us anytime, folks, at ftr@fullythreaded.com.
And remember, you can subscribe to the podcast very easily just by going to the website, the Fully Threaded website, and clicking on the link. That'll set everything up.
That's right. And also, regarding subscriptions, get out to the fullythreaded.com website and sign yourself up for the BB&T Capital Markets newsletter. That comes out once a week, and we send it out to Fully Threaded listeners who've signed up for it. It's a great newsletter put out by Holden Lewis and some of his associates, and it's kind of a general industrial supply wrap-up, and it's a good digest, and it's free of charge. So getting back to what Rob was saying then about some of the issues that are happening with shipping, I was thinking, as I was reading this story yesterday, apparently the bankrupt state of Illinois has come up with a novel idea, and it kind of ties a lot of strings together for us. They're going to actually begin shipping some of these Asian carp that are infesting the Illinois River, among other places, and they're going to be sending them to China. There's an article about this on the website chicagobreakingnews.com. If you're interested, get out there and just search for the term Asian carp, and I'm sure you'll find it. This is just from the other day. And opening line says, Governor Pat Quinn today signed an agreement with China to export as much as 30 million pounds of Asian carp a year from the Illinois River, a move aimed at reducing the population of the invasive species.
Yeah, now for those of you who don't know much about this Asian carp, it's sort of an interesting fish because it gets upset by the vibrations of propellers of boats. And so it's one of the traps in some of these Illinois rivers is that these fish jump out of the water when they're near boats. And there have been a number of people knocked out of their boats and knocked out by these fish, which get to a pretty decent size.
Yeah, well, they're causing all kinds of problems. I mean, that's one of them. But the state of Illinois, bankrupt as it is, who knows if this will work or not? They're making this deal, and they're trying to process up to 30 million pounds of this stuff by 2011.
Wow.
We don't spend too much time out there on the Illinois River.
No, actually, and you know, the interesting thing is we could probably not even need a GPS out there because you can sort of see the bank.
Oh, gosh. You and your GPS. Well, go out to this website, take a look at these fish. I don't know if you're going to agree with that after you see these things.
Well, I'm just glad that we've got something to put in all these empty shipping containers going back to China.
Oh, that's a good point. For Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fasteners Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.
I can't think of anything else to say at the moment, okay?